I'm very sorry our ambassador isn't here today because he would love to have met the boys and love to have seen their presentation. I'll just wait for everybody else to return. Damon's here. Tania's gone. Who's next door to you? Okay. Right.
And what we'll need to do is pass those as just separate resolutions, the one in the paper's just
Well, kia ora koutou katoa. It is lovely and my very, very great pleasure to welcome two very special people to our chamber today. And they are Jamie Estill and Corbin Hawke. Now, councillors, you will recall in the middle of lockdown, when everything looked very, very difficult and challenging, and our lives were running to try and make sure that our community were being fed and cared for and loved and had lots and lots of people around them who could help them, that our seniors were being called up to see if they were okay living on their own, and everyone was doing something through the COVID-19 pandemic crisis. And out of those dark and gloomy days, when we were all scrambling to care for our community as community leaders, and I acknowledge all the work that our councillors did over that time, we got this beautiful email from these two future leaders, and they told us what a great job we were doing, and they thanked us for that job. And today we welcome them and we celebrate them because they are our future leaders. They are the young men of the future who will take us through and help us through difficult times. And thank you for your leadership. We're truly grateful. We look forward to what you've got to show us now. Welcome to you both. Room 16's hard work.
Kia ora, my name is Jamie.
And I'm Corbin. We have been best friends for a long time.
We are very thankful for all the hard work that you have done to keep Hastings safe as possible in this global pandemic. We had to research the different types of pounamu to see which one was the best fit for the job that you had to do to keep us safe. It's been a tough time, but we have come out strong. And for that, we would like to give you these pounamu that we have made. Now, Corbin is going to tell you a little bit about the pounamu called the toki.
The toki we have made for you is made out of salt dough, which is made out of salt, water and flour, and it symbolises strength, courage and determination. We thought that it suits you because of what you had to do during this global pandemic.
And here are some photos up here that of us researching and making them. Thank you. Thank you.
I acknowledge also the boys' teachers, Tanya Cordes, for making sure that this all came together. It's truly a a wonderful privilege for us all to be part of this very, very special time. And as our community has grown stronger through the COVID crisis, it's our community, like our young people here today, who have made our journey through this a whole lot easier, bringing us together. So thank you so much to you both. Oh, well, it fits beautifully. Thank you, Jamie. Oh, there's no worries, Corbin. It's sort of cracked in the oven, but that's okay. Now, I wonder if the Chief Executive might like to present him with that. Yes, because he led a very, very great team of people to help us get through. It says, Dear Sandra, I'd like to say thank you for keeping Hastings safe during the global pandemic. So to say thanks, I have made you a pounamu called Toki, and it represents strength, courage, and to have control. Kind regards, Jamie in room 16. Now, Jamie looks a little bit like someone we know. That
So
works.
Mum should stand up.
And I think Mum should stand up. And Mum didn't know anything about this. So, well done, Mum, for the outstanding young leader that you have here.
So you did so well today, and thanks for coming into the chamber, and thanks for taking the time to, do this amazing thinking about us and the work that we did to support the community, and taking the time to do all that research and make the cookies and come in and tell us about your story. Absolutely fantastic, and hope mums don't get too upset with giving away chocolate and
Hastings
stuff.
is our Hastings chocolate,
This
our
is
very
Hastings
own.
chocolate, so thank you very, very much.
And we look forward to coming to your school, and we will be able to wear this when we come and see you in your classroom. So thank you for the beautiful, beautiful tonga, the beautiful treasure. Lovely to meet you. Lovely to meet you. It's Jamie. Corbin, wonderful to meet you. Keep up your wonderful leadership. We might have a song, do you think, everyone?
Yeah, why not?
We'll just sing your waiata. Baden's running up again to get the guitar again. There has to be tutu to mai for us, isn't it? So this is our waiata, our council waiata. It means us all in this together. Yes. Go Mahora, it's a Mahora day today. Oh, good on you, Malcolm. Oh. Right, so as we resume. Okay, all right, so just Alex will take us through the next stage of our submission process.
Thank you, Worship. So just a couple of non-financial submissions left to go through. We did some pre-lunch. So the first one is submitter number 1, Jan Daffern, who spoke to you this morning, on page 1, I believe. Submitter number 1, page 1, Jan Daffern.
Oh, yes. Okay, submission number 1, Jan's submission this morning. Page 1 of the, sorry guys, a little bit boring for you now after all that wonderful presentation. Councillors, there is a number of parts of Jan's submission. Would anybody like to make comments, please, on officers' comments? So the officers have said that they will take care of working with the waste management side of things. And the other part was that we will be looking at the rates review early next year. That's what the officers' comments say. Are people comfortable with that, or do you like to do anything other than that? Agree with the officers' comments? Thank you. Cool. Okay. So any other further comments than starting the Mahora plan in January 2021, which will take into account a number of those other issues like community centres, trees, etc., etc.? Councillor Harvey, Councillor Sholem.
Thank you, very supportive of moving ahead with this, and also, if I may request, I'd love to be involved in that process, being Mahora's my stomping ground as well, with my children going to school there.
Okay, thank you. So Denise's team will be leading the process in January, thank you. And Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, thank you. Just in relation to what the Mayor of Whakatū raised, just making sure that we've got the right processes.
So we'll come back to his submission.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I'm saying we're about to approve another, and I'm just wanting to make sure it does line up in how we do them from a process point of view. What's the vision and all of those sort of things around those community plans.
So that's the conversation that council will have through the long-term plan about positioning funding alongside plans. So we haven't had that conversation yet, but it's in July, next month. Excellent. So the next one? Yes. Sorry, Councillor Dixon.
Just a question, really. Has Mahora got a confined boundary? Because I know the school zones actually overlapped. So if you went from the school zones, they wouldn't work. So they'd have to make certain that Mahora's actually got a confined boundary for the suburb of Mahora.
Does Mahora have a confined boundary? Craig, Mr. Pooh, is that something that you could know? Okay, thank you. Community of interest, excellent. Very good answer, Mr. Pooh. Excellent. Right, next one.
For you, Your Worship, number 36, Bay, Mr. Estill, morning, page 115, really a status update, largely to do with the impact of COVID on the sport and recreation sector, and congratulate the council for support that sector.
Thank you. And can I just make a note when we respond to Sport Hawke's Bay, can we please acknowledge that they took the time to come in today? We also fund a lot of organisations, and it's just, and they took the time to actually give us a presentation, and to me that means a lot. So could we make that acknowledgement too, please, thanking them for taking the time to get the update, because normally the money just goes out and we actually wouldn't know what is actually happening. So I think that's really important. So any other further comment? So just one councillor talked about whether we increase or whether we stay with status quo with a sum of money. Councillor Harvey, do you want to declare an interest here, or? Yes, sure. Yeah. Okay. well, it's probably best to just remove from the decision-making around the financial implications. Councillors, do you want to continue with the status quo on the investment in Sport Hawke's Bay with the $75,000? Okay, and Denise, you're comfortable with the direction of where the focus will be? Everyone comfortable with that approach? Okay, status quo, thank you very much. Welcome back, Councillor Harvey. Good afternoon.
The last submission that doesn't have direct financial implications, submission number 34, Mr. Royal spoke to this morning, covered a number of topics from rates through to development contributions and the changes to the regional financing policy.
Thank you. So just going through Mr. Royal's number of parts to his submission. Any comments? Any suggestions? Any changes?
Yeah,
Councillor Barber.
yeah, there's a lot of information in that paper. But you want to kind of, I don't think the solution was clear to come out of that, especially around the economic impact. How you model that and how you would, I hear what John's saying, but you want to make council's job easier. Come with a model, or or some kind of suggestion around how you do that, because it's hard. It would be really difficult to actually factor in. What do? You give a 0.4 for building and construction. You give a 0.6 for horticulture. How would you actually do that? So that so that's what I was thinking when he was presenting that. A lot of information, but how would you actually structure that into how we deliver our service?
So, Councillor Barber, can I just can you just talk about which part of change that we could consider? Is it the DCs? Is it the building control fees?
Well, the building control stuff, that's either go private or keep it in house, and I think we've canvassed some of those issues. What I'm talking about is he wants to acknowledge the economic development impact that industry has on the region, and he wants that factored into the DCs somehow. And I'm just wondering how you actually do that, because you'd get different industries wanting the same or higher kind of So anyway, I just thought it's good information. Yep. But is there any other councils that factor in economic impact? Yep. And where do you actually go? So just some of the thoughts that I had. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah. And I don't think there is a clear answer in terms of, how, I think that that review of the economic development incentives will also be a way that we look at how we factor in the value and importance of economic growth. And so I think that work is underway now, isn't it, Chief? Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, thank you. Just to actually follow on from Councillor Barber, we have heard the same sort of stuff from John for the last couple of years, but one of the things that did sort of hit home was just sort of what you've touched on, and I gave you all the magazine this morning, The Prophet, which actually is doing what he was really asking. It's around making sure that we position Hastings and really show that it is the engine room and the fact of all these number of jobs that have come into those industrial areas and stuff, what the impact has been from the building community, what that impact will be going forward. That was the sort of stuff that I picked up, which was new from him today. So I just wanted to make a note of that.
Thank you. Mr. Shaughnessy, did you want to add anything? No? Okay, thank you. Councillor Nixon?
Thanks. I really just saw it as a useful reminder of the importance of industrial development, and also a reminder of the need that we do need to monitor our costs and understand the implications it can have on developers and development generally. So I took it as just making sure that we didn't forget.
And in terms of the the building control part, and I think that's absolutely key that, you know, council continues to monitor that and that we look at getting the best service possible for the community in a timely fashion. I think the structure that is in place is probably a different structure than what we've had in the past. Be fair to say, Mr. O'Shaughnessy, and that's trying to address some of that. Not, yeah, so that's and I'm not sure that Mr. Worrell actually understood does he understand that we're using 3? He does. Okay, cool. Do you want anything, Chief?
No, just it's a perspective, and there's a range of different perspectives here, and I wasn't going to bring it up, but we've got a number of developers that interestingly say, hey, we don't want to use any of those private sector consultants, we want our work managed by the council. So I think it was a useful perspective to hear, and it's a good challenge, but it's I think it's one perspective in the
job subsidies come off, then we should get a real idea of how things are going to evolve. So we're being very conservative through that time, and we'll bring that back to council anyway if there are significant impacts in our area in terms of volume of work and so forth.
Thank you. Councillor Redstone?
Thank you. Just on the comment from Mr. Royal and the figures from Mr. Royal about the building inspections, I guess I've had a couple of people come to me and complain about having to have a separate inspection on a whole lot of things that could have been done at one time. So I guess my question is, can we apply as much efficiency as possible to those, rather than one lady was building something small in a shed and said 7 inspections. So
those new provisions,
Excuse me, sorry to interrupt. Can I get you to turn your microphone on?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Is that better? Yeah. The new provisions, we're waiting to get the detail from MB. I think you'll find a lot of those little jobs will not require building consent. They still need to be built to the standard, but to be honest, the consenting value for some people is low on those very small jobs. So I think that's actually a bonus in disguise, really, because people will be able to do more things without a consent, provided they build it properly. So I just think we might get a little bit more compliance work, with neighbours not getting on. But I think a lot of those smaller jobs, what you're talking about, will not require those fees anyway. Yeah.
thank you, John.
Thanks, Lex. Next one, please.
I agree with you that part. So there's 3 things left to do before I'll take the wrap-up resolution. The first one, within the main council agenda in my report, just gives you a little bit of background as to the consultation undertaken with people playing the Waimara and the seawall targeted rate, and the need for new works, maintenance works on that wall. So the outcome of that was positive, and that those returning a response will agree with that. That is the rate that's been in place for some time. They're probably protected, I guess, so probably no surprise there. That was a formality that we need to cover off, given that it's an increase in the targeted rate.
Thank you.
So just that's the wrap-up resolutions, just making sure everyone's comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sholin?
Forgive me, I feel like the live streaming Nazi. Can I please ask that you turn on the microphone when you're speaking? That way anyone watching at home can also hear. Thank you.
I just don't need to stand, probably. Lex, that's fine, we'll just stay seated. Excellent. Okay, all right, so the Waimarama seawall, councillor Sears.
Are we standing? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Just to say that the consultation that did take place was absolutely fantastic. Mr. Hanson has had numerous visits. The right people have been on the beach, seen the wall, the engineering works, been applauded by the contractor as being perfect. The letters that went out were very clear. And just so everyone's aware, this is a targeted rate. It is paid for by Waimarama residents, seafront and back. And I just want to congratulate Mr. Hanson really on getting it through and getting the work underway.
Thank you, councillor Sears. Well said. Thank you, Lex.
So the next item, you've had some substantive information on Howard Street development area and the proposed internal development contribution. There is a separate resolution that's been drafted if you're ready to move that way, but a discussion.
Okay. All right. So do you want to, yes, thank you. Councillor Lawson declares a conflict of interest for Howard Street, and so does councillor Watkins. Okay, so following today's workshop and trying to progress as fast as possible with the Howard Street development, there is a recommendation up there for the development contribution policy at that level per Huey. Is there any questions to the staff on Howard Street or any comments? Councillor Nixon.
Yeah, I raised the issue this morning just of capacity of the system, and I just wondered, how do we, if that changes our thinking, how do we incorporate that into the development charges? I mean, how does that work? I know it's not going to be a huge amount, but...
Through you, Your Worship, we'll do that check as talked about at the workshop, and we'll correct if it's just a marginal cost, if it's needed at all, because the team have been working through on the proposed development densities. We can do a balancing through just to see, because obviously as when we go to market, we'll have that uncertainty answered, and that would help us reassess what the final rate may be if it is a reduced one. If it would look to increase that rate, that would be a decision we'd come back to you as part of a resetting it in a year's time.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we weren't locking ourselves in, that's all I'm doing. Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Just a question of staff. What are the triggers that sit in behind pushing the start button on this particular project?
Through Your Worship, so the first tranche of work will be acquiring the land for the road and the services to go into in the first place. So that the land acquisition is the first thing that we need to do. That will then trigger the need then to go to the market and tender the works. There will be a review prior to doing that to establish that there is demand out there for the works, for the development to take place in the first place.
Thank you. At what stage do we realise what it ends up being, as in that 20,000 or thereabouts? And in relation to when are the developer through the process of also going to market? Because I'm just trying to work out who actually, when we're talking about if there's any money given back, when is that process? How does that sort of kick in?
Through Your Worship, so the process for finalising on the DC will come once we've been to the market, once we've established what the tender price is, and then finally once all the variations are known and the work has been completed. It's reasonably unlikely that development will take place prior to that work being done and undertaken. So the opportunity to refund DCs is probably, or the need to refund DCs paid in advance is probably limited on the basis that landowners and developers will pay development contributions when we get to the 2-4 stage, which is just prior to title being issued. Title won't be able to issue unless those services are in place, and we've got absolute certainty around what those costs are. So the time of refining those DCs will be some months down the track once we've gone through those additional processes and steps.
Thank you. So if, in examples of past developments and stuff, I'm just trying to think of the sales process, because really they add that on pretty much to what they would be doing. Therefore, when, so who in effect actually ends up getting the compensation or the money, really? Because it seems to me that it's more the developer will get it, but they've actually already charged it on anyway. I'm just trying to understand this a bit better.
I would say most developers wouldn't necessarily pass that on. Some situations have this a clause, but the reality is they also take a risk when they build things. So even though you might have a tendered price, you'll get variations if you find unusual ground conditions and all that. So who gets the money in the end? I think, Bruce, we send it back to the developer as opposed to the individual owners of the new lots. Yeah.
So we have the recommendation. Does everyone seen it and read it? Okay, so no further questions or comments? I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Okay, thank you. Welcome back. Thanks, Lex.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Your Worship. So the final piece is just to work through a handful of submissions with financial implications that you need to make some deliberations on. If I just ask Joel to just one moment and we'll set that up.
Thank you.
Just double click the Excel, do you?
So this is the deciding time of the financial implications and whether or not we want to fund anything else over and above what we've already agreed and consulted on. Thank you.
Okay, councillors, so just navigate you through the spreadsheet. So just for new councillors who may have been through this process, the yellow row that you see there is the position as per your draft annual plan that you'll be well familiar with. Obviously, any approvals that you make in terms of financial submissions will have some implication on that. However, there aren't too many.
Okay.
So I'm just going to work you through that by submission. So the first line relates.
Can we just make it a bit, bring it up, please, and make it a bit bigger so we can see.
Yeah.
You don't need probably the
you can go to the left.
part on the side.
No, I can't see the column.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
The first submission, we really need to see the amounts, Joel. You remember the submission from the Mayfair Community Group? There were a number of items there. The first item regarded the traffic safety issue, and in the officer comments you'll see the intended solution that officers have been working with the community group on. We'll be putting in an application with NCTA for funding. That 4,000 represents the council's local share should that application be successful.
Okay, we'll just go row by row. Is everyone comfortable with that 4,000 for the Mayfair community road safety outside the school? Yeah. Yes, that's our portion.
Cool.
Baden?
Any additional costs on top of that we add onto this spreadsheet? It's going to have an impact on the 1.9?
Yes.
Short answer,
Through
yes.
Your Worship, yes, it will.
No. Say that now before we get down to the road. So I just say no. I mean, we made a commitment to the community, 1.9. That was it, and that's it. If we're going to start chucking costs in here, that can only go up.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Through you,
Thank
we
you.
should
So,
explain that a little further. There is some scope. The 1.9 doesn't shift until something like $50,000 or $60,000 of approvals. So,
50.
yeah,
Okay.
I don't know the exact number, but there is some scope to acknowledge submissions if you're of a mind without impacting that rate increase.
But I'll just say from my point of view, it's a no, unless you can really, spread my arm around that, that we should be funding something in this financial year. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. So, to keep our rates at 1.9, does everybody understand there's about a $50,000 leeway? And so perhaps if we look at the overall sheet there, thank you, and then we can actually see what the, thank you, take us through.
Yeah, I think Worship suggested I just take you through the flavour of them first. That might be helpful for you.
That's what I want.
So, second item that was raised by Mayfair Community Group was around the bund and the removal of that bund, you recall. So the two options put forward to you by officers was to wait and consider it through your long-term plan. If you're of a mind to do that in the 2021 year, it comes with a cost of $25,000. I think you just wanted me to overview the list. Yeah. And the last part of their submission was around the feasibility, you'll remember, for the community hub. What officers are suggesting there is that if you're of a mind to want to do that, that could be accommodated through existing budgets, therefore would have no rates impact. The next line item was submission 24 regarding support for Chinese Language Week. It was a request for $5,000. Again, if you're of a mind to approve that, officers can advise that can be funded from an existing funding source. The next submission has quite a number of items. It was from Kairanga. You remember submission 26. So if I just take you through that cluster, the first group of them are all elements of that submission that officers are able to action without any further funding from existing budgets for our reserve management plans. So that related to removal of bamboo, additional street light, some reallocation of the car parking, a reseal of the car park, safety fence, and a security scoping investigation. So if you approve those things, they can be done within existing budgets. There is one item within this submission that officers have raised that can't be treated that way. And you'll note in the submission the proposed upgrade of the homestead room. So again, the options being put forward by officers there are to either wait and consider it through the reserve management plan that's being put together, or if you're of a mind to do that quicker than that, the upgrades comes at a cost of $20,000.
Okay, so we're coming back to them, so if you please just don't call out, thank you, we'll come back to them.
There aren't many more just for councillors, but that'll give you a feel of what we've got in front of us. So you've had two submissions, one by video on the Waimarama domain. Really request for the road entrance that submitter on the video talked to, and also the implementation of a hard court of some form on the reserve. As outlined in the officer comments, those are part of the reserve management plan for Waimarama, but they sit in years further out. Through your long-term plan process, you had to phase the implementation of reserve management plans, of which we have numerous. So they sit a few years out. The submitters are requesting of you consideration about bringing those funds forward. That's loan-funded activity, and what you see on the screen there is the debt servicing or the loan funding cost to do those. So just doing the hard court, $5,000 per annum. If you were of a mind to do both the hard court and the entranceway and get on with it, comes with a loan funding contribution of $20,000. Moving to the next submission that came from Havelock North Wanderers, talking about the club rooms on the domain, and their request for that hot water solution. And again, as per the officer comments, really two choices there. There is some consideration about a longer term project in terms of a more significant upgrade on that park to deal with the numbers using the park. But there is an interim solution. If you're of a mind, $10,000 to upgrade upgrade the hot water system. And as the submitter said himself, that could be retrofitted into any future upgrade if that did in fact occur on the park. And then lastly, our last submitter from Whakatū, Mr. Ratama, spoke to you about community plans, where they're heading, and particularly, I suppose, around activating them through a more consequential funding source, really, however that might look. So there's no amounts on the screen for you there. That was something that Mr. Ratama was floating about the way forward. I guess the only comment I can make there is that in 4 weeks' time you'll be deliberating on your long-term plan at the first workshop, and that's already one of the items targeted to bring to you around a bit of a mini stock take about where community plans are, which ones are coming at us, and whether we should be dealing with them differently, and funding will be part of that discussion. So that's happens on the 23rd of July.
Okay, so just on that one, is everyone comfortable that we leave that to the long-term plans and look at all the community plans? Thank you, everyone's agreed to that. Okay, so to now look at these, is that the lot? Okay, that's the lot. What is the total sum there? 89,000. Okay, so I think probably the best way to handle this, I've got a couple of questions here, so I'll start with Councillor Redstone, then we'll look at the best way of handling it, and Councillor Travis.
Thank you. It wasn't so much a question, but I agree with Baden about not spending the money, but that first item, the Willow Park Road Safer Routes, is absolutely vital.
Okay, does everyone agree with that? Yes. So the 4,000 definitely for the safer routes for the school. Okay, cool. Thank you. So that's Mr. Thu.
Through you, Your Worship. So $4,000 is if the team is successful with the special grant, through which would mean 10% payment rather than 50% payment. I'd suggest to you that the transport safety budget should be able to wear $4,000 for that. So I'll instruct the team just to reprioritise to take that off your additional ledger here.
Good.
We'll report back if we're
That's
unsuccessful.
what we like to hear. Thank you.
We'll report back if we're unsuccessful with that funding bid. So just to reconfirm the time frame in the officer's submission, so in July they start the travel management plan, they'll make a bid for the funding, which would see a result back in August, which would then enable the works to happen following August. So waiting a month, 6 weeks is a $16,000 windfall to council. Obviously, if you'd like to go faster, then I'd probably request that we keep some additional funds and not worry about that application. I would suggest we go for the application.
All right. All right. Could we please have the whole lot up on the page, please? So just the page of the ledger. Yeah. That's it. Cool. Got everything there. Spread it out a bit. Okay, we're starting with Councillor Shodham. Oh, sorry, Mr. Thu.
Through you, Worship, also having talked to Mr. Hosford further down with the showers item, on that one there's a bit of upgrade and a bit of renewal, so I would suggest that we look to find $5,000 out of the building maintenance account and $5,000 as part to the enhancements, just to soften that one.
Oh, we love this, don't we? Yes, yeah, that's it, councillors. Beautiful. Right, starting with Councillor Shodham. Right.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to the team so far for finding magic pots of money. We do like that seeing that it fits within the existing budget. So just to clarify, if we are to stay within $50,000, that keeps our promise to the ratepayer of 1.9, is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
That's something in order of that. Okay, I will be watching the spreadsheet very carefully. Looking at this, it's great to hear that we can potentially look at alternative funds for at least part of the changing rooms. While I support the submission, if we were being asked for the full amount, I would probably suggest we waited for the long-term plan. Definitely support looking at funding the community plans under the long-term plan. The Waimarama debt servicing costs, can we please, oh, you've got it up there. actually, I'll wait on that. I'll wait to hear from what other people have got to say. In terms of the homestead upgrade for Karanga, I do support waiting for the RMP before we go ahead with that. We're right in the middle of a process and we've got a really engaged community and it's part of a bigger picture. So I do support waiting until we've been through that process before we look at that upgrade.
Yeah, so I'll just pick out on that point now. How do others feel about going through the RMP for Kironga? Yep, is everyone comfortable with that? Thank you. Okay, so if that one's done. Next one, Councillor Travis. Oh, sorry, did you want to speak on that one, Malcolm?
I was just going to speak about the homestead.
Yes.
It's a dire straits of some form of repair. I think that's the important issue around that they're trying to make. I know the reserve management plan is key, but that homestead, toilets leak, washhand basin doesn't work properly, and so it needs some dire repairs somewhere.
Right. All right. Well, okay. Well, we'll come back to that. But thank you for feeding that information because that's the sort of stuff that we don't actually know when it says upgrade. How important the upgrade is. So, and if it is sanitary, then we have to think about that. Okay. So I'll start with Councillor Travis, please.
I am as keen as the next person on keeping our rate increase moderate. But of all the submissions we've heard today, the one around Mayfair School I found the most compelling. And I would not like to feel that any of us had on our conscience the death or injury to a child. So although I can well see that it's advantageous to us to wait until there is external funding, I would like to leave this room today knowing that it was going to happen in the shortest possible time period because, every day counts.
Thank you. Mr. Thu? You've got certainty of...
So, under the current officer's recommended approach, there is a 6-week delay to see if we can get that additional funds. So, if council is of a mind to go faster, then we won't worry about applying, and therefore we would end up paying around $20,000, not $4,000. So it's really up to you if you would like to not worry about applying and to start the work in July rather than later in August.
Okay, so let's just talk about that one. I'll save the rest for a moment, but we're just going to talk about the Mayfair School, please. Councillor Barber. Councillor Lawson.
Yeah, I mean, there's good reason why you want to look at sorting that road out. However, it's been like that for years. Years. Put in parallel parking, done toilets, we've done a whole lot of stuff down there at Bill Madison. I'm of the view that we go for funding, to try and get this thing done, and to see what happens there, rather than take off and just do this stuff. That'll take a lot of so,
I speed.
but notwithstanding the comments that safety is key, but balance the books and get funding from somewhere else.
Yeah, Mr. Thu, could we just think about this in a different context? And it might be that we just have a bit of an offline conversation, if you don't mind. Then we'll come back to that one, please. We're going to leave that one, just thinking about how we address this in a different context. Thank you. Right, now, Councillor Seth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just on the Waimarama Reserve, I'm looking at a way that we could take that out of the budget but still progress it. I'm wondering about a suggestion. I think the hard court is secondary to the roading option, so I think that could be pushed back. Thinking about your comments this morning, Mr. Thu, to Councillor Kerr, it's not possible that the road could be completed before this Christmas. Perhaps an option is to look to commit to the engineering and planning for the road within existing budgets for this financial year, with an agreement that we could look to 21-22 for the completion of the road, so we'd know that the the project was on, but it would mean that we could take $20,000 out because, yes, I agree, if we're going to keep rates down, we need to, we can't spend more. So, yeah, I didn't know if that was possible.
Can you get on and get everything ready to get
Yes, I believe we'd be able to progress with the design work, which is the key, I think, that you're asking for, and that gives us the stable platform to give into the LTP discussion in that following year, should council want to do that in the first year of the LTP.
Can I just follow up? So would that compromise the chances of it being, if we push it back in a way, and I don't push hard to keep it in this year, would it compromise its chances to be finished in 21-22, following that this way?
I don't believe so, but it also may enhance if we progress the design, if there are any tourism investment funds or other type funds that become available, the more shovel ready we are, the more able we are to apply.
And so can the design work be done within existing budgets, or would we need to have a figure in there for that?
I will have a talk to the team and look to how we make that happen.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. That's a good direction. So, is everybody else comfortable with that direction? Thank you.
Yep.
That's very comfortable with that. So, we're leaving that one with you, Craig. Okay, so, and that takes care, and you suggesting that we leave the court situation for the next financial year? Yep. Thank you. Right, and the situation back to the Mayfair school. Pressure's on you today, sorry, Craig. This is all your stuff.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship, I suggest you'd leave it at the $0, and we'll have a talk through the team around how we might be able to do that using different methodologies as fast as possible.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. I won't move from 1.9. We've got to stay there. I support the safety issues in Water Park Road because there's life at stake. If ever there's a year the public will understand that we haven't got money to do a lot of the things they'd really like us to do, it's this year. So, as far as I'm concerned, everything else on the list is out for this year.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I'm agreeing 1.9 is where it has to stand, but I'm just looking at the removal of the bund. 25,000. I don't think that's an essential item. For all of those that go to Mayfair Park and actually watch the rugby, a lot of them enjoy actually standing on the bund to watch it. So I would consider that completely unessential and to come back in later years.
That's a question that we asked today, and I think that'll be good as part of the community plan upgrade and just making sure we get the community buy-in. So is everyone comfortable with that direction about the bund being left until we do update the Mayfair plan?
Yep. So just to clarify at this point, can you put the yes back against the bund for a moment, Lex? I think with what we've done currently, so everything is currently yes, that's still there, and it's still at 1.9%.
So I think the question around the bund, Chief, is actually the community understood and that's what they want to have.
That's why I'm bringing it up with us.
I'm just trying to clarify for council with everything there that's on the list and funded right now, the rates stay at 1.9%.
Yeah, thanks. Could I just get some clarification as far as the work at Waimarama that Sophie was talking about? Is that RA1 or RA2? Because if it's RA2, it won't actually affect the 1.9%. And somebody sort of...
Through you, Your Worship, that work in the park is called in the parks budget, so therefore there's a split of, sorry, help me here, Bruce or Lex, the split from parks?
Oh, something like 93%, 7%.
Yep. To what? 93 to RA1?
Yeah.
So the figure's almost right.
Yeah. It's not moving anything.
No, that's fine. You can see what I was coming from. Sorry, Sophie, I thought I had one answer for you.
Thank you. Can we just cross-reference in some way the bund and the importance of the clearance of it back to the community plan that was put forward to us was a couple of years ago? Because I'm pretty sure that the safety and security and the ability to see through that park was one of their major concerns. We've only heard from sort of a representative of that community, but when we signed off that community plan, there were significant other people here, and I know we've made some improvements to because they were worried about views through to the other side of the park and undesirable behaviour going on there. So yeah, I just want to double check.
Sure, thank you. So yes, the concern around the bund is actually through the safety reasons.
Yeah.
Sight lines, people being safe in the park.
We know where the film would go, don't we? Okay, so that is in there for safety reasons, so it's not just so people would just stand on the sideline if it was rugby day?
Yeah, I think we've looked at the park as one purpose, which is rugby, or sport, but it's predominantly rugby that's there, where there's a lot of other activity that goes there. So I think back to that community plan that they were talking about the potential recreational values of that park, which it doesn't really offer at the moment, and one of the reasons was also because of the safety issues. So that's, yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, given that it can be as part of our rate 1.9, therefore we'll just take comments on that, on the fund, please.
Yeah, you know, we asked them today, you know, what was priority for that community, and the bund came close to the bottom, I thought. You know, the bund, yeah, you'd like to be able to see through it, but it ain't gonna, you know, having that done this year, you know, I understand that we have some threshold that we can work with, but again, I'm just trying to, you know, we're trying to be disciplined here. We even though we've got a threshold, we don't have to hit the ceiling. Yeah, I just, you know, I think it can go. It can wait. It can wait. It's not the burning platform. The burning platform is sorting out the road, and I think we're on the track to do that. So, yeah, I think you know, I'm a Tamati man through and through, and I'm just saying that we can probably hold off on that one.
All right. How do others feel? Can I just have a show of hands if people agree with that direction? Yeah.
Thank you. I noticed in their submission it said that they either remove or reduce the size of the bun. So I guess my question is, would 25,000, so obviously it's an issue about safety, and I do respect what people are saying about sticking to the 1.9% rate increase, and also that was their third choice to be done. So I have that question, is reducing it, would that be in the vicinity of $25,000, or would it be less?
Make any difference,
I guess that, you know, what we could do is
taking 500 mils off might actually expose something that really we don't want to see. So,
I think that you know, just to set a direction here, I think we need to do some more work. We need to understand it. We need to talk to the community and get ourselves lined up for the beginning of financial year next year. How do people feel about that? Agree? Okay, so we need to understand what this fund, what it looks like, how we're going to manage it, and then we can fund it next year. Okay, comfortable with that? All right, thank you. Next. We're coming down to the homestead now, I think. Now we're at the Kironga homestead, if we can just move up a bit. Thank you. Okay, so Malcolm has outlined, if we did do that up without the RMP, that there is sanitary issues in the homestead. It's used, is it used a great deal? Colin, do you want to add anything, any more information that you might have from working with the society?
The homestead itself, the main thrust of their submission was one particular room, which is rather odd. It hasn't been used actively for donkey's years, and they've thrown stuff in there kind of as loose storage. What they want to do is change the access to it to make it more usable. We had that priced, and that really is the $20,000. That's the price tag that was put on it. I'll also say we were talking to a heritage architect as a result of our community engagement, who raised the issue about not doing anything to this building until we actually look at the significance of it in terms of its architecture and where it sits on the whole ground. So there's we're a little bit caught betwixt and between, but truth be told, that room really, this would be at the moment, I would suggest, a nice to have. Council spent quite a lot of money on Kairanga over the last 2 years in support of their
Performing arts,
development. And in my officer's comments, we're looking at also doing more work to assist them, if you like, in surrounding renewals work, to help them with power connections, stormwater, sewer. It's not as though council has not been, we haven't been miserly with them here.
Okay.
So, and this,
all right.
I would suggest, it's not a high priority.
Okay, thank you. Are you happy with that, Malcolm? Will we put it as part of the wider picture? Councillor Sholem?
Yes, I support that as well. I was just wondering if we could zoom out just to see what is still pending.
Okay, thank you. And the last one, if we can put it up. Put it up.
Could we please remove the homestead via those conversations?
The last one is the Havelock Wanderers changing rooms. All right, can I have some direction with the changing rooms, please? Councillor Sholem.
Thank you, Worship. Given the fact that we are able to somewhat reduce the initial request and the infrastructure upgrade, for lack of a better word, is going to be reusable, I think it is worth us looking at, particularly because we are keeping to our promise of 1.9%.
Okay, how do others feel about that? Councillor Sears?
I feel like there's probably a lot of options of places they could go for funding for this, and as we are turning down every other, everything else that's really wanted in the community, and there are some other options, I can't really support this one either.
All right, so Councillor Harvey.
Thank you. Mark Espton, in his presentation this morning, said that funding is incredibly hard in the sport community, and it was also reiterated by the gentleman that spoke to us as well. Gaming fund money is hard to come by at the moment, and corporate sponsorship, any sort of sponsorship is too. So those are the things we need to take into consideration.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dixon.
Oh, thank you, Worship. So, are these council-owned facilities or the Havelock North Wanderer owned? Okay, it's essential they actually put a new cylinder in that's actually gas-fired, because the problem in the past, they've all been electrically fired up, basically, and the heating takes more than the 12 hours on Saturday morning to actually warm the cylinders. So many of us have been played for a long time, all been used to cold showers.
Okay.
So it has to be gas.
So, Colin, can you just tell us if that price that you put in there is going to be the correct price?
Can you come up to the microphone?
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. I've talked with the plumbing people, and they're confident that that price is,
okay.
It's a quote, it's a fixed price quote.
Right, thank you, Councillor Barber.
Yeah, similar to what Sophie said, we've taken a hard line on every application this year, for good reason too, I think. $5,000, the parks in Havelock North, Guthrie Park, Tomatea are upgrading their club rooms this year, and it needs a couple of $100,000 to do that, and they've been digging into their own pockets. Old players donating $100. There's a wall of donations. $5,000. You could pull that out of Havelock North in a couple of minutes. So. Hey, I just think we need to be consistent. I think we're sending a message to the ratepayers that we're tightening our belts for this year to maintain a 1.9% rate increase. And I just think, and this is public information, when they can look back and see that we took a consistent line with all the applications, I think that, that's a good thing. So, hey, I was in Tomatea, we had cold showers for 15 years. I was playing rugby. By the time I got to the shower, it was freezing. So, I think they can survive another year.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. Consistent in your approach across each line.
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. Question for the staff. If we are to wait for the LTP, this is a bit like asking how long is a piece of string. Do we have any idea how long these guys are going to have to wait for their hot water showers to come back?
Next year, Colin?
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
While we've got that, I'll just ask Councillor Wilson. Oh, Councillor Wilson.
I was thinking that maybe it would be easier for me to speak after that information came back. But I feel as though I'm a bit of a soft heart, really, but and I like a nice warm shower, but I'm afraid I have to support what Councillor Barber said in this instance. I think if we're going to take a hard line, we need to be consistent across the board. Thank you.
Councillor Redstone.
Thank you. I'd like to also support Councillor Barber because I think two things. It's a nice to have. They could go home and have a shower before they have a beer. And hey, cold water, harden up. So.
There is. Wow.
Yes.
Ask the question of Councillor Sholland.
Realistically, the amount of money required for a upgrade of the changing rooms extension to the changing rooms. The changing rooms themselves aren't so bad. It's the fact that the club has been so successful in attracting teams. It's one of the biggest clubs in Hawke's Bay, and the club rooms, they struggle with actually dealing with the amount of bodies going through. So, but to do that, it would take some substantial planning. I would think probably be year 2, realistically, of the LTP, because I don't think, for the amount of money, I would think it would be in the vicinity of $1 million for that extension. And by the time you have it planned, consented, tendered, and go out, we're probably pushing it a bit if we said it was year 1, which would be the first year of the new LTP.
So we're talking a couple of years away before they'll get the extension. So what you're saying is that you hard people, you're still going to be sticking with your hard approach? Yep. I'm not sure actually. I'm going to throw in the devil's advocate here. And the reason I'm doing that is it's because it's actually our facility. And we have to maintain and look after our facilities. And so okay, I understand that, yes, you can hard enough to take a cold shower, et cetera, but if we've got an issue with one of our changing rooms, that just like we did in Mayfair, why wouldn't we spend $5,000 to sort it out for the next 2 years? Throwing it out there. Okay, Wendy. And I don't think we need to go on all afternoon about this. I'm okay either way, but I'm just throwing a different approach.
No, thank you, Your Worship, and I will chuck out my last-ditch effort. Look at this, we are not moving from our promise to the community to stick to 1.9%. In the grand scheme of things, when you look at any other fund that we draw funding from, $5,000 is a small request. This is something, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Hosford, that can be implemented relatively quickly, this interim. Yep, you're nodding your head. So we're looking at helping our community immediately with a wonderful problem they have, which is growth in sport. And this is what we want to be encouraging our young people to do in particular. So I am supportive of this $5,000. If it was pushing us beyond 1.9%, I would say absolutely we need to review this. But of all the requests that we have received and all the ones we've pushed back to the long-term plan or a resource management plan, this is the one that's going to take the longest, and this is the one that we can actually do something the fastest with. So I'm appealing to the good nature of you all to please support this.
Okay, so I don't think we need to go through it all again. Can I have a shot?
I'm next. Yeah, you Geraldine's next, but
Okay. Okay. Order. Sit. I'm not going to any further debate over $5,000. Thank you. I'm going to ask the staff to find the $5,000. Yep, okay, very good. All right, that's us, Lex.
So, thank you, Worship. So, it is us.
Don't you love annual plan day?
Congratulations, that's all your deliberations concluded. So the last task is just to pass the wrap-up resolutions. That covers all the business of the day. You find that on page 6 of your main agenda and my covering report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lex. Thanks for the great deal of work that has gone into this. Now we turn to item 6 on page 5. And there are recommendations A to H there, which takes into effect what we've just been doing. Happy to move. Thank you. Councillor Nixon, second, and Councillor Dixon. Any further comments on any of those recommendations? I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you. That is carried. Item number 7. Rural Community Board recommendations. And largely they've covered off a lot of the submissions in those recommendations. So do I have a mover, please? Councillor Sears. Seconded, Councillor Redstone. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Chief Executive, I welcome you to present your update and report for the Council.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll take the report as read. And in summary, I just, as my report back to you, I guess, of the first half of the year that's completely been dominated by sort of COVID. I guess incredibly proud of the organisation and you as elected representatives, how we managed the response to COVID-19. The focus now is around recovery, and on recovery, I think worth summarising that we are well into the recovery phase. We have a Hastings District Council recovery plan. We have a broader set of work through Her Worship's Merrill sort of task force. We have moved pretty rapidly in terms of a range of decisions that's got support out to our community. Our Rapid Response Fund, the $150,000 that's been invested or allocated for our business associations to support our towns and our retail. The I guess good news around the $9.5 million of government funding that's been secured for our footpath highway upgrades and State Highway 51. Yep. The $350,000 that's been secured for Eat Street, the $1 million that's been invested in our youth employment program, Mahi for Hira Taonga, and I think that speaks testament to the work that Denise and her team's done over the last 2 years, where that's a huge vote of confidence in terms of extending that program for another 2 years, but expanding it in size. We've also had another $300,000 in support from the government to employ additional staff to actually implement our Mahi for Hira Taonga sort of program, which is the approach that we're taking with progressive procurement as we use our local contractors to do the nearly $10 million worth of government-funded work, where through redeploying, working with our locals that to get into work. So that's been another significant achievement. And you'll be aware that this afternoon, I think as we speak, the Undersecretary for Economic Development, Fletcher Tublato, is down at our regional sports park announcing a significant investment in our youth programs, youth hostels, and in a local firm in terms of investment into Hawke packaging. And when we sort of meet with you next week's retreat, we will give you a substantive briefing on all of the other applications that are in front of the Crown for investment into Hastings. Obviously, the deliberations that we've just had on the annual plan, obviously we've worked together well to, in a COVID context, recast an annual plan to reflect, I guess, a softened rates impact. And as we head into next year, I suppose that the last point I'd make as your chief, and I guess to acknowledge the conversation that's just happened about discipline, is going to be required as we balance obviously the delivery of year 3 of an LTP that's important to our community, with landing at 1.9%, $1.4 million of operational savings, probably 4.09 as a result of the conversations that we've just had, and obviously looking to make the right set of choices about the services and the levels of service that are most important to our community. But that's the task in front of us, and one that we're really looking forward to. But happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions from Councillor Sholem, Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I may, a comment. Thank you. Thank you to you, and thank you to the wider council team for everything that has been done during this crisis. This has been a huge amount of work, and I know that most council staff didn't have a COVID holiday like many describe it. They were working longer hours than ever. This is evident in the proactive role that our council has taken in our community and is continuing to take in the recovery, and that's being driven from the top, and by the top I mean this whole front table. Thank you also for the careful consideration that's been put into how we can reduce the rate burden on our ratepayers. And I think where we have ended up is the best we can possibly do without deferring to the future where a hidden impact will come later. So I thank you all, and look forward to continuing to work for the betterment of our community as we move forward through this.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I'd just like to reiterate what my councillor colleague has said. Nigel, you've pulled the team together in a situation where we didn't know where this was going. I mean, it was a terrible time, but you managed to mould the team. We've got through it. The preparation of the Zoom meetings and what have you, particularly for us councillors, that was fantastic. And I think we all look at where we are today and say Hastings is in a very good position because of the leadership and the work of the team around you. And I obviously include you in that, Your Worship. I feel very privileged to work under you both during this, terrible circumstance that we've been through. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. I think you'd like to move and second it. Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Sholem, Councillor Watkins, thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Item number 9, so that's receiving our beautiful Honamu from our beautiful young men. So I'm very happy to move from the chair that we accept this very treasured gift And seconded, Councillor Travis. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. The Hawke's Bay Disaster Relief. This is, I'm happy to move from the chair. This is just a formality of process. Councillor Harvey has seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Petition. Now, so last night were the petitioners, were they at the meeting? Can somebody tell me?
Through you, Your Worship, yes, the lead petitioner, Duncan, and his wife were there,
Okay.
as were many of the signatories. And obviously many of you were at that meeting, and there was some really good participation on the discussion on options and alternatives, which the team are incorporating into their early thinking. So we'll report back on those.
Thank you. So thank you very much for last night's presentation. I thought everyone having their say around the tables worked incredibly well, rather than a public forum with people raising hands. Being able to ask the questions directly to the engineers was a very, very good model. And can I thank all the councillors that attended? It was a fantastic turnout. It was something that was really, really important to the community. There is, as we worked through the workshop of speed limit reviews last week, we know there is no simple solution. Moving from Ruahapia to Bennett to how we manage to get this sorted out is not going to be easy, but the community were reassured last night that we're going to make sure we take them with them, and because whatever you do, it has to be the buy-in from everyone, the orchardists, the residents, and the wider community that live in the Waipatu area. Councillor Harvey?
You pretty much took everything out of my mouth that I was going to say, but I was just going to direct it at you, Craig, and say well done, because I think you took a lot of the hammering at the marae in a previous thing, and so last night it was really good to see the approach that was taken, and it was just that it made everybody at ease, and that it just made it a little bit more of probably a less informal sort of situation, and it was a good news thing. So fantastic, thank you.
Councillor Harvey, thank you. And seconder, please, Councillor Lawson. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against?
Sorry, can I?
Yes.
I am actually a signatory on this petition.
Oh, okay. So we won't take your. Thank you. Councillor Lawson has moved. Councillor Nixon has second. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Craig, when did we say we're going to return to the community about the solution for that area?
Through you, Worship, as the team pull together those options, as soon as I've got that, the idea is to go back working through the community group and with the lead petitioner. Clint from our security team is in frequent conversations with Duncan. And I've committed to, once we've got that draft pulled together, that we'll have a first meeting with those people, and then we can come back. The idea is to move at pace on this, Your Worship, given the long-standing and the risks that come with that behaviour.
And the community in the Ruahapia who texts me a lot.
Correct.
And Ruahapia Road.
What officers will be reporting back to council more formally, though, following the speed limit workshop, is at the next month's council meeting, when you adopt what to consult on. There was some discussion and optioneering around the speed choices and the cost of how much infrastructure response we put into Otani and Ruahapia Road. So that'll come back formally to you as well. So I think that's a nice time to be able to formally return what all the choices are.
Okay, thank you. And I'd like to declare a conflict of interest. I wonder if someone will take the chair, please. I am the patron of Edible Fashion Awards. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, as the chair of the Civic and Administration Committee, we discussed and agreed with these recommendations at the last meeting on the 16th of June. I'm happy to move the recommendations as written. Any discussion? All those in favour? Aye. Against? The motion's carried. Thank you.
Moving to item 13, the Environmental Consents Independent Hearings Commissioner. Any questions? Councillor Watkins.
Happy to move the
Thank you.
recommendations.
Have a seconder. Councillor Redstone. Any questions or comments? I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Updated meeting schedule changes.
There is an updated report before you. There's a few extra meetings that have come up since the agenda was published. So your approval is for them. It includes the speed bylaw hearing, which is now scheduled for November.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Second, Councillor Travis. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Now we are in a placed item 17, a recommendation to exclude the public. Could I, before I take a mover and a seconder, can I please invite Mr. Cameron to discuss those two items and advise us why they would be in a PX agenda. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, both items involve commercial negotiations to take place on behalf of council in the future, so it's appropriate that they're in public excluded.
Thank you. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Watkins. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Travis. Any further questions to Mr. Cameron? Thank you. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Okay, someone's just going out there. Would you mind just closing the door and putting the